Hey, what's going on? Happy Friday to everybody. Welcome to the Daily AI Show. Today is March 20th, 2026. This is episode 685. And I'm joined by Beth and Andy, and I'm Brian. Welcome, guys. Glad to see y'all. Happy Friday. And I was just saying to Andy before we went live, because I didn't know you were going to be here today, Beth. So it's great that you are. But it's a bit of I think a little bit of a demo day. I was saying I have small demos to share from Perplexity Computer, Stitch from Google, and then Google's new version of AI Studio that just came out that has a bit of a built-in builder, for lack of a better term, inside of it. So I thought I would just share some basic examples of me just kind of messing around in those. But we usually start off with some of the news, and just goes just goes to show there's always a lot of news going on, a lot of different things going on. I'll kick it off with one that's like Carl actually shared and I saw as well. That's like not really AI, but I think we're talking about, and it's this introducing DoorDash Tasks. And the reason why it's sort of AI adjacent, I think, guys, is that the idea of this, which makes so much sense, and I guess they've been doing this to some extent already, and they're sort of expanding this out to other cities, is you have your DoorDash drivers who are, delivering and doing things like that. But as they explain it in this article by DoorDash's blog, I guess, they were saying, look, there's all sorts of other things that businesses sometimes need knowledge about. Sometimes it's easy things like just getting more updated photos of their food, their plates, right? Whatever their meals are. Sometimes it's like whether things are in or out of stock. DoorDash says they've been doing this forever because some entrances are really hard to find, and they need to be able to help internally their own deliverers, their drivers, figure out where to go. And so there's been this sort of like crowdsource like DoorDash, swarm, if you will, of all these drivers across the country who have already been taking pictures or updating information to help the next delivery and the next delivery. And they said, hey, I mean, we're not the only ones that need it. Turns out our clients are the people we're doing the business for need this type of stuff too sometimes. So I love this idea that they're giving DoorDash delivery people more ways to be able to make money. And they do that through something they're calling tasks, which can be really, really simplistic. I suppose they could be a little bit more complex. There's a pricing schedule in there. I don't know how that works. And the last thing I'll say is they just sort of said that they are thinking about, or they have decided to make a standalone app that I guess is just about the tasks. So I love this. I think this is not only a great way for people in the gig economy to make more money doing things on routes that perhaps they're already doing. So it's not even necessarily an out of the way. They say it's like things people could do in between orders. Sounds great. Obviously I hope the pay is correct, and the people are being paid for their time. But, if it's as simple as, hey, while you're over here, jump into this grocery store and just take a picture literally of whether something is in or out of stock, or maybe it's, is it correct? Is it front facing in the store? Was it loaded right on the shelves, and all that kind of stuff? I don't know. Sounds like a really cool way to do it. So not necessarily AI news here, but an interesting model, and makes a lot of sense to me that DoorDash would do this. So I hope it's successful for them. I hope people are able to make some money.
That I think the connection to AI is that there will be agents that need information, and if they can
Yeah.
task a DoorDash driver to do it quickly, that'll be
Yep.
one of the fastest routes. And so I think it's a forward-looking, forward-thinking approach by DoorDash.
Yeah.
So, just to clarify, I think it is AI, because I think what they're doing is setting up world model kinds of things, right?
Mm.
We need the world model also. The entrance is behind the whatever. So like humans, will need to know that, but so will robots, right? So will like this is a story that is adjacent or whatever is closer than adjacent, just a hair's breadth away from. Do hares breathe? Uh, a, a hair's whatever away from workers training the robots that will replace them. Sorry.
Yeah, I thought what you were about to say I thought you were about to say a hair's width away from the, yeah, you swerved on me. I thought where you were about to finish your sentence to say it was similar to this story about AI agents hiring humans to do human tasks. Because I was like, oh, that's more like what Andy was just saying. Like, yes, the business is like conceptually, we think about this as I'm the manager of many Quick Trips gas station, right? And I have questions about stock or whatever. I'm not sure why you wouldn't have employees, but let's just assume there's a reason why you might use a DoorDash person on this, and it's not an internal employee, right? That's conceptually the way I think about it. This man or woman puts in this request, but Andy, you're probably correct that quickly turns into agents putting in requests and humans accomplishing those tasks. So it is possible. And I mean, I think Greg was saying like, yeah, this is definitely AI. So, okay, it's an AI story. I've decided. You guys have convinced me. So I think it is a bit of what you both said, but it's funny, Beth, I was totally expecting you to say like, not being replaced by robots, but actually AI hiring humans in a roundabout way to finish off tasks that AI can't currently do.
Right.
So,
and there may be a sub story in it that that is part of where they saw this going as well, right? So where is the where who's successfully delivered this before? What do I need to know from them?
it comes back to who owns the data, right?
Right.
These DoorDashes and Teslas, and they're sitting on mountains and mountains and mountains of data. So now they're finding new and innovative ways to make money off of that.
Okay, I've got real AI news now. So OpenAI, just yesterday there was a report in the Wall Street Journal that basically covered what was happening behind the scenes. First, in a town hall that was hosted by Fiji Simo, the CEO of applications, and also Greg Brockman, OpenAI's president, who has become recently kind of notorious for being the source of $25 million of donation to Trump's super PAC. And what they a headline about what was being said in that town hall meeting is that OpenAI wants to be Anthropic. Now that's the translation. But the CEO of applications, Fiji Simo, told employees that this is another code red moment that we have to meet. And so what then came out of that is OpenAI's intention to create a super app, which would consolidate the ChatGPT application, the Codex coding platform, and a web browser into a single desktop super app.
Yeah.
Okay, and that move would sort of try to head off the traction that Anthropic is getting with their desktop application and their range of different additions to that, including some that we can talk about here just in a moment. But I just wanted to throw out that that OpenAI is running scared of what has happened with Anthropic in the first part of this year. And specifically, I read that 40%, which is a big percentage, of new enterprise implementations are being caught by Anthropic, not by OpenAI, which has something on the order of 20% of those. So Anthropic is making headway in the enterprise market, and this OpenAI super app is targeted to enterprise commercial application, not to consumers. But we will benefit as individual prosumers or consumers, but from the sort of further integration of the various tools there. I just want to add that I've been in the process of sort of resolving all of my efforts around the Anthropic tool set. And I had already started the extraction of memory from ChatGPT. And also I'm starting to copy the instruction sets on the dozens of custom GPTs I have and projects. So I'm just in a position of preparation to just abandon ChatGPT and focus on Anthropic and Gemini as the two main, let's say, inference providers for me.
Yeah.
I'll probably leave GenSpark behind as well. And then I'll have three primary subscriptions. I'll have Anthropic, I'll have Gemini, and I'll have Perplexity, which I use in a different way, but is increasingly capable of doing almost all the same things that Gemini and or Anthropic can do, with some additions that are beyond and distinct from those two. And then I also will maintain a subscription to Lovable because I like that platform and its ease of use. So that's just my response to what's happening out there in this competitive confrontation between OpenAI and Anthropic.
Yeah, and I mean, there's news. There's two bits of news from OpenAI. OpenAI to acquire Astral, which accelerates Codex growth. It's to power the next generation of Python developer tools. So there's been other either acqui-hires or acquisitions that OpenAI has done as part of what their push with Codex. And what it appears to, at least when I was reading one of the newsletters this morning, that they're just creating their layers, right? They're ensuring, or they're further hardening the ability of Codex to handle front to back as far as what it can do. And I guess Astral is a key part of this. And they have a whole article on it. You can find it at OpenAI. This is from the founder and CEO of Astral. He said, Astral has always focused on building tools that transform how developers work with Python, helping them ship better software faster. As part of Codex, we'll continue evolving our open source tools to push the frontier of software development. So, it's just one piece of a larger story here, talking about how they are, doing more, acquiring of other companies in order to help strengthen Codex. And then the second part of this, two-story thing is they had an article that came out yesterday, OpenAI did, called, as far from their safety side, called How We Monitor Internal Coding Agents for Misalignment. And it's an interesting article that I recommend anybody going to check out at openai.com, because it talks about what their approach is. But interestingly, what I find in here is, if I could find it, this is what it says, because they were talking about using GPT 5.4 thinking for maximum reasoning effort. But this is what I think the biggest takeaway for me was. It said, in its latest form, our monitoring systems reviewed interactions within 30 minutes of completion, categorizing the interaction and assigning it a severity level. As the latency decreases towards near real-time review, the security benefits increase significantly. Eventually, the monitor may be able to help evaluate coding agent actions before they're taken. I think that's so critical, to point out, providing another important defense in depth control alongside other existing security monitors. So just think about what they're talking about there and saying, like, right now we can do this in 30 minutes post, coding. We can use our other like smaller agents to go in and help. But as this moves towards real time, it'll be catching errors before the coding is ever written to begin with. And I think this is the path forward, right? This is what everybody wants to hear, is like, hey, if I'm going to move from something that's, inherently considered vibe coding, whether that's a dirty word or not, depends on the business of whether they feel like vibe coding isn't real coding or whatever, right? It's not real code. It's going to break on you instantly. It doesn't have the back end. I've heard it all, and the reality is maybe some of that is true. And maybe I wouldn't stand up, full enterprise solutions on something that came out of Claude Code, but increasingly so, whether you're using Codex or Claude Code, or now we'll talk about it in a bit, Google's, AI platform, who can do a lot of the same things now with Builder, these problems are going to go away. And so the idea that you can't trust the code, I think, is going to be a 2026 problem, not a 2027 problem.
So I get that, and I think it's exciting about I think it's exciting, the moves toward this. I feel more confident using a plugin like Compound Engineering, where I can see what agents are being used, what the instructions are being used that do that. I can supplement it if there's something that's being missed. I like for when I run something about the show, I have created a domain expert sub agent that knows everything there is to know about YouTube channels that go live and podcast kinds of things. Like, I think I like them being more careful. I don't like everything disappearing behind the wall of we've covered it in the system instructions because, like, right? I just want to know more about that. And I would also say that that the majority of vibe code, that's the wrong way to say that. Vibe code is more often messy code than bad code. And if you're a coder who knows how to code and has to deal with it, that's bad for you. Like, I'm not saying that's like a walk in the park. But I would say it's more that the code just is unpleasant to read.
Right.
And AI and the things using vibe coded code don't care about that in the same kind of way.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I look, I'll still roll back to what I just said. It's a today problem.
Yeah.
This messy code, poor code, whatever you want to call it, kind of vibe code, it's going away. And I know there's people who are very, very good at their jobs as coders, and take pride in how organized and clean their code is. And there's a lot to be said for that. And there's people who have very good points about, this is going to break under like extreme security or cyber attacks or whatever. And they probably have really good points about that. I think it's, a question about where are you deploying it and for what reason, but also the AI is going to catch up on that side too. It's just coding. I don't take anything away from people who have coded and made great careers over that. But the reality is this is math and its algorithms. It's going to be caught by AI to a point that it's perfect, and you're going to have coding that doesn't fail.
And so Compound Engineering was built by Kieran Clausen, who's a dev entrepreneur at Every, and part of the thing is for building code. I'm using it for other places as well as building code. He built in there's a reviewer that goes through and says, all right, well, this is mentioned in 3 different lines in the code. This is how it needs to be cleaned up. So that's like an example of what I'm talking about in terms of, yes, and what you're talking about too, that having a review or having something that goes sets it up on the front end or sets it up on the back end, it doesn't have to be messy.
And right now, that's an extra process. And what OpenAI is saying is eventually you'll never see it. It'll happen before the code is ever written to begin with. It'll be evaluated, corrected, looked at from however many different angles. And we will only ever see the exported code. It's more similar today to like watching thinking. And unless I drill down that little menu to see what the thinking is about, mostly my user experience is just the end result, not that it might have used 6 different models to get there, and there's good and bad to that, by the way. I'm not saying this is all sunshine and rainbows. There's clear problems with everything being behind a opaque wall, but anyway, not to keep beating a point, because I know we want to move on, but these problems I think are short-lived. Today we're building tools to work around it. Tomorrow, there'll be no need for the tools. Now, I should say, CodeRabbit, there is a news story about that, just to throw it out there. So we're on this topic. CodeRabbit just did come out with something they call Plan. Meet CodeRabbit Plan. Better plans, faster deliveries, less rework. Now, I'm familiar with CodeRabbit. I have not used the tool, but essentially, it's right in this line. It's meant to help you basically come up with a better, I'm going to say, PRD that helps you organize things not only from a PRD, but from a, code requirement document. And frankly, I haven't actually used something that would do that for me. That's not only looking at the plan up front, but also saying, I'm I'm looking into the future about what this plan entails, and I can already tell you you're going to run into some coding issues here, here, and here. Now, if I can immediately give that to like a GitHub and then push it through to Claude Code, that I don't know. I'm theorizing here. That would actually be a really cool tool. Something that's not only looking at it from the project, but also looking at it from the code, because that's an area that I don't have experience in. So, perhaps another solution. People can go look it up, but that news just came out over from yesterday as well. And I guess it was called Planner. Now it's called Code Rabbit Plan. And you can go to coderabbit.ai if you want to check that out.
So we're not gonna do it today because we have lots of thing, but I'll set up a demo next week maybe, because compound engineering does that too. And I know I say that it's like, ooh, compound engineering also makes your coffee. It doesn't. But there is a planning sequence in that too. And one of the things that I love about the planning sequence is that it looks as part of the plan, who has solved this? What if, right? So it looks at repo. Did somebody build this code already? Excellent. Let's grab that. Who's been writing about this on blogs? What do we need to know? An answer was made 6 months ago. Then there are all these people saying something changed, it didn't work. So it does that kind of research.
Yeah, so helpful. Yeah.
On the subject of coding, I think it's notable that Cursor just released Composer 2.
Yeah.
And Composer 2 beats Opus 4.6. I'm not sure how well it compares to Codex. I think Codex is at the top of the leaderboards right at the moment. With the advent of GPT 5.4 as the reasoning engine behind Codex, or some of the benefits of the training of GPT 5.4 probably are leaked over to Codex in that way. But Cursor Composer, it takes advantage of multiple models. You can use multiple models with it, but it's an orchestration or a tool framing that advances the capability of Cursor beyond what just a straight Opus 4.6 can do with coding, for example. So on benchmarks, and I gotta believe that if Cursor, with its very large group of users, is training on coding specifically in a way that Anthropic or OpenAI don't train just on coding, they also are working heavily on training for general reasoning models. But if Cursor's really achieving that level of benchmark performance, I got to believe that the people using Cursor 2 now probably have a step above what's available through these other coding platforms.
Yeah, I'm looking at it on my screen. It sits between Opus 4.6 and GPT 5.4, which is what you said. Although we're talking about on this performance calls
differences here.
Yeah, I'm going to say 58. I'm going to say Composer 2 is 62 and GPT-4 is 64. So we're really in a range. Now, the bigger issue here is on the x-axis, they have cost, and Composer 2 is the cheapest to use, which makes a big difference too. If you have a near top tier model and it's by far the cheapest, well, that starts to make a giant difference, especially in something like Cursor. And again, going back to the same sort of theme we seem to be having today, which is a lot of people are going into Cursor and they don't necessarily go in with a really strong plan, or they're not using compound engineering. I had to go look for it in the comments, compound engineering or Code Rabbit plan or whatever, right? They're not, and so they are burning through credits while they're working on this, and that's normal while they're sort of coming up with whatever the solution is Cursor is going to help them with. So obviously getting to lower costs. And by the way, it's significantly cheaper. I mean, Opus 4.6 High is median cost per task is the way they have it labeled here. And they have Opus 4.6 at $2.50, GPT 5.4 at around $1.50. Composer 2 would be, if I drew the lineup, somewhere around 40 cents. It's significant. significant difference in price.
They don't talk about it this way, but it sounds to me like it would be an example of ASI, right? It's competing. We're comparing it to general agents, right? I'm guessing they didn't spend a lot of time on Greek history or like what umami means in terms of food, right? Like they have the ability, because cursor is only being used to code in this context, to narrow how you trained it, and therefore I would guess they spent a little less or took advantage of somebody else's pre-trained.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. What else do you guys, anything else real quick before we pivot? I have like maybe one. I think I have one more story up here that I didn't get to. You guys have any?
Yeah, I have a couple of small ones, but go ahead, Beth.
Okay, so today is the day that the White House is expected to submit its AI regulatory framework to Congress. It's Friday, March 20th, which was named. So it's a formal executive branch position that lands the same week as earlier this week, Department of Energy announced a $293 million Genesis mission announcement. And Genesis, hang on, let me go up. The Genesis mission is basically covering 20 plus national science and technology challenges. There are two levels of grants. Phase 1 grants are $500,000 to $750,000 over 9 months, and phase 2 scales it to $6 to $15 million over 3 years. Applications are due April 28th, 2026. So if you have an idea, go to the Department of Energy and see what you need to submit, because that is happening soon. There's an information webinar also on March 26th. The program explicitly forces collaboration across government labs, academia, and industry. No single institution can claim a grant alone. And it's a structured design choice that treats AI problem solving as a commons rather than a proprietary capability. Yes, we are also surprised that this was announced from this administration, but let's go with it. Let's collaborate. That's my news from around the block, because I am still outside Washington, D.C. Not in Canada yet.
Okay, there's just in the last couple of days, Beth, I think you shared a story about a rogue agent that had kind of, worked its way outside the boundaries of what it was expected to do without prompting. Maybe you can refresh my memory on what that one was, but there's news from yesterday about an experimental AI agent in China that broke out of its testing environment. It was sequestered in this testing environment, and it ended up mining crypto. It figured out a way to mine crypto to generate money so that it could use to do things. And this was not in its prompting at all. So this is a little scary. And there are a number of, on social media, I saw on TikTok, I think, the head of AI alignment and safety issues in Canada was doing a press conference basically and reading aloud this red alert that this is the early warning that we're getting, that teams around the world don't have control of these agents that are going to be working their way around the web and could do things that we don't expect. So there's an urgent need for new guardrails to be put in place.
Well, yes, and right, like there's quantum, there's a thought that quantum computing makes this better for the humans, but anything that makes it better for the humans also makes it better for the agents, right? Like we're running it, if we have access to the quantum computer and we're not giving the agent access to the quantum computer, I don't know, it feels a little like a Jurassic Park kind of moment. Like you thought you were in control. Maybe you misunderstood the way that things function. We're not in as much control as possible.
Yeah, I mean, stories like this don't scare me because we found out that it was going to mine crypto. It's it's all the AI stories where there is no story because we have no idea it's happening because there's it's untraceable or
Right.
it's covered in some way. So yeah, I don't worry too much about the ones we find. It's all the ones we're not going to find, and when you say this is out of control, it's like, yeah, it's like also, how does it cover paths and things like that? I mean, that's a bit of the idea, the Pandora out of the box thing, or Pandora's box rather, not Pandora out of the box. It's Friday, so it's okay. We'll
Here's
roll with it.
the door was in a box. Now
Sure, Pandora's in a box. That makes sense. It's a piece of jewelry or something. Yeah, we'll go with it. Andy, did you have any other news stories before we roll?
No, I'm eager to see your demos.
Okay, cool. The other one I had really quick for the other news story was just Uber to invest 1.25 billion into Rivian. I only find that for the new robotaxi deal. They previously had done that with Lucid, so this is another deal that Uber's doing. What I find more interesting about that is that Rivian has not really, this is what they call out in this article, they haven't really shown their ability to have any sort of like full autonomy cars. They've talked about it. We know they have really great software, but it's not exactly proven. So I would say this is a big leap of faith from Uber into Rivian for something that is not proven yet, or even like a little bit proven. It's not like we have Rivian cars driving around as current robotaxis. So it's 1.25 billion. It starts with 300 million. There's a lot of benchmarks that Rivian needs to hit in order for it to actually hit that tall number, but that's the one that made the headline. So interesting there, kind of AI adjacent, but we know there's AI being used in all of these self-driving and full autonomy, level 4, level 5, all these kind of things. So I just want to bring that up really quick. Okay, 3 quick demos. And these are just like, so we know that Stitch, which is from Google, had an upgrade. And so I wanted to show that one. I'm also going to show the upgrade that just came out in the last day or so from Google, again, on their AI studio that makes it much closer to, well, I haven't used Codex, but I'm going to imagine closer to Codex, as well as closer to a Claude Code. It's sort of their answer there because they could do all sorts of stuff like Next.js and React and a whole bunch of stuff that I've only recently learned about from doing the project Bruno. So that's super cool. And then the last one is Perplexity Computer. And I had actually talked about doing this idea the other day on the show. And so I wanted to follow up with that. So I think we'll start there because it's just kind of, I was saying on the show the other day, I don't really know what I would use Perplexity Computer for. And I had an idea on the show about researching universities in the state of Florida. And so that is in fact what it did. I'm sorry, I don't have like what my criteria was, but I just literally went to Perplexity Computer. Again, not to be clear here, they announced recently Personal Computer. That's different. That's on a waiting list. We'll have to wait and see when Andy gets access to that and all the things that can be built. This is literally just me and my browser using the computer function at perplexity.ai, right? So what it basically did though is it did create me this pretty cool dashboard that allows me to look at ranked universities. It gave me some different ways in order to filter out different sizes of the universities as well as tuition. And then actually it gives me some cool drop downs here if I want to use the University of Florida. It's giving me some key metrics, some financial outputs, and I'm not quite sure why it didn't show in-state. It's only showing out of state there. But either regardless. And then what you can do is you can look at like, it did a scatter plot for like cost analysis at the top here, talking about public versus private. As you would expect, the public universities are going to be cheaper. In-state tuition by university. So you can see it here. It actually points out that Florida Polytech, which is a fairly new university that I drive by all the time. You have to drive by it if you're going from Tampa to Orlando. So it's on I-4. They have not raised their tuition in like 4 or 5 years. And they're currently the cheapest. And then it goes on to talk about Florida State University, which I would say FSU gets a lot of love these days. UF is harder to get into. FSU, I don't want to say is like always gets all the students who can't get in. It's a quality university, but also their costs are a little bit cheaper. And then so it gives me some other things, but I love that it's an interactive graph. It has the hover overs on there, which is actually really nice. Little things like this is to be expected, but honestly, that's pretty cool that it did that. So I'm impressed by that. Then it went into student life and it gave me a bunch of different boxes and giving it scores in terms of walking score. Cause I had asked it, I was like, I don't want to just see like cost of university. I want to know about like, what is student life? I went to the University of Georgia and literally downtown Athens is at the edge of the university campus, or at least North Campus, which I took advantage. I didn't realize how nice that was as a college student, that I could easily walk down to the bars, easily walk down to the places that were playing the local music and all the historic bands that have come out of Athens and stuff. Not every university has that, obviously. Some of them aren't anywhere close, and the students are forced to get in a car. So just to show you kind of like what I had to do, but now I can compare different universities. So if I want to compare University of Florida and where is it? Florida State University here, then I get kind of a performance radar, and then it gives me a side-by-side comparison. Overall, I think this is a good use of Perplexity. It kind of goes in line of, I have this sort of research thing that I want to do. I want to use the best of Perplexity to help me understand it, compare, contrast, and everything else. But now computer has given me a really easy way to turn that into a very, visual experience that allows me to click through. Just overall, much, much easier to do this than to like read through a bunch of text or anything like that. So kudos to him. I mean, I think this is really cool. I was impressed by this. And it inspires me now to like, go try some more research projects that I might have in mind. This is the first one that came to my head. So yeah, just wanted to know this.
Yeah.
But this one came.
Comments about Perplexity and computer. It's worth reading Nate Jones' recent post about Perplexity specifically and its competitive stance, since it doesn't have a frontier model itself. It depends on external frontier models, and what will be its defensive moat. He does, by twists and turns, say they're at risk because they're in the middle space between the tool sets and the models. But he does come to the conclusion that their primacy in search for AI and the skill that they have exhibited as a team, as a company, in advancing the capabilities of search and research. So your example is a perfect example of that, which now adds, through computer, the ability to not only do deep and really well-founded search, but then to aggregate that information and synthesize it into a beautiful infographic, interactive presentation. Really, really impressive for Perplexity. So this is the area where Perplexity really shines.
I think so.
Computer makes it shine even better by adding all of this sort of UI presentation skill.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I was a little like, I don't really know how to use this. But now seeing this and how well it did and knowing where it came from, they didn't call it computer. I can't remember what they called it. Perplexity had a precursor to this that was sort of like this, but not this good. I just can't think of what it was called.
They had the Comet browser, which...
No. It was in Perplexity, but it was like, it was better than a deep research, and it was visual, but it wasn't computer. Yeah. It had a name. I can't think of the name of it. It was focused, or
I thought they had something called tasks, but this is once again everybody using the same word. Like, just make it slightly different, so we're not just talking about the same thing all the time. I know. And the idea about Perplexity. Perplexity has never had a moat, really. And it's nobody told them that, right? Like, they're just moving forward as though they're not on thin ice, and they haven't been. Ice hasn't broke.
I wouldn't characterize it as a moat, but from the outset, they have said, we want to make an answer engine. And that mission, that vision and mission that was top down from the CEO, I think is showing up well in the products that you can access. Before we move on from Perplexity Computer, let me just tell you my Perplexity Computer experience. Everybody who has a Perplexity Pro account got 4,000 credits to use with Computer. So I did a quick little thing with Computer. We were playing in our Slack channel, and I mounted that into our Slack channel. But then I was really interested in seeing what it could do for me. And I think I mentioned on a previous show that I asked it to start to, you know, interact with me and ask me what each of the kinds of skis that I skied on through my long
Right. Yeah.
history of skiing. And it did a really nice job up to 1980 or so, but it burned all 4,000 credits in doing that. So it's not inexpensive. But you can see that it's aimed at like what you did with it, Brian. I think if you extend that to the kind of research that you might do in the context of your company or your enterprise, even on a larger scale, this is worth spending money on because it's really going to pull everything together, and it's all grounded. It's all replete with citations and links, and it's just really, really powerful that way.
And I just went over to perplexity.com because I was curious, or .ai rather. If I only started with 4,000, I have 3,375 left. So it didn't actually use that many credits to build this university example. So yeah, I don't know. I would definitely recommend going to play with it. And by the way, if people are like, where? Well, when you go to perplexity.ai, it literally says computer there. And it says computer works for you. And I sort of lamented that I really didn't think their examples of building stock charts that we can find readily on the internet was a great example. I think my example should be up there. I think that's a much better example of how to use
I vote for you.
for Perplexity. So, okay, let's go over to Stitch next. So Stitch is, to the best I can understand, it's about building the visuals. You could literally build the like what we would traditionally call like the wireframe for a website, which is kind of what I did here. It's a little weird that like this right here is sort of where it's giving you the answers back, but then you answer it over here. That kind of threw me off to begin with. And I quite literally just said, help me come up with just a podcast, a more modern day podcast website, because our dailyaishow.com one is laughably bad at this point. And we keep saying we're going to update it. So I was like, okay, well, just, give me a shot, basically. You can see there's some sort of back and forth here. It gave me some options. I was like, yeah, mix and match number 1 and number 2. And then basically what it does is it puts them on a board like this that you can kind of drag around. It's basically like just like a idea board, really, inspiration board, if you would. And you can see what it's suggesting. Now, these aren't like live. It didn't build those websites, but it does have the data behind it. If I wanted to take this, what I would do is I would like select this one and select this one. Maybe I can't select one at a time. I don't know. Maybe it's one at a time, but then you can export it here, and you can actually see all the ways that I could export this particular code, for lack of a better term, on like how it was built, that I could then give to Claude Code and say, hey, you're helping me build maybe the whole back end of like how this, project printer or something works. But I've worked with Stitch to figure out the front end visuals, use this plan, and you could give it from Stitch to basically, you could export it out and give it to another builder to do that. So it's almost like you're able to build your own templates, like, you have WordPress templates. And so it's very easy to use. It's very visual. You can put more and more ideas on here. I haven't played with it a ton. I think there's a lot of other different ways you can do it. When you start, it asks you, do you want to build something for web or a desktop or mobile, things like that. So I think it's definitely worth playing around with. I don't know that it necessarily costs me any money, so it's definitely worth playing around with for now. But you can go to stitch.withgoogle.com is the way it's read on there. So very cool. All things you can modify, preview, new tab. I guess I can go to a new tab here. I haven't even tried this. Sorry, I'm trying to load it right now. Let's see. I take it back. I didn't realize that you could do this, that you could actually click through the different pages that would be on this website, although it's either because I'm sharing the screen or otherwise it's very slow. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's a cool tool. I haven't used it a ton yet to figure out, maybe it is the best tool for us to like visually figure out what the next version of the Daily iShow website looks like. I mean, obviously you can see here, we can share it. So I could start something, Beth, you could have started something, shared it with the team, said, hey, what do you think about this? Oh, I like it, but maybe we should do this and that. I like the idea that it could be a collaborative tool in that way. So that's what I did with Stitch. And then to round things off really quick, I use Google or aistudio.google.com. So just AI Studio. And this is much more like using Claude Code, or I'd imagine Codex, although I don't have experience there. And so basically what I did was I had it, and now I'm looking to see like if it fixed things, but it didn't really, it deleted the where you upload the document. So I would love to show it to you, but I don't have any way to upload the document to it. So it.
So
All right, let me stop sharing this.
you have a
Maybe
chat
just ask it in the
over
chat
there.
to repair that.
Yeah, I got to figure out why when I made the update, it literally got rid of the thing it is supposed to do. What were you going to say, Beth?
Same thing. Your panel on the left looked like it was, you could click in it and talk to it.
You can.
uh,
You can.
And that AI Studio started as its playground. It's just like advanced its playground, so that now it has a nicer interface and looks a little bit more like a kind of chat that you're interacting with.
What I had to do is just do a quick prospecting tool, and it does work. Basically, you give it the information about what company you work with. I typically use this experience because just one of these things that a lot of people ask for is that better tools for prospecting, and similar to other things I had to do, and it did work all beautifully. I wish I could roll back one example here so I could just show. Oh, here's our version history. 1 second. Let me see if I can just current restore version. Okay. All right. So let me share my screen again. At least you could see what the idea was here, and I'll throw a document in it really quick. But it's it's like anything else. Like if you were building and you had an idea and you wanted to build out a website or an idea for it, that's essentially what it did. I built this in probably less than 20 minutes, which is absurd to think that you can do this, how easy this is now. So that's why I'm telling people I think they should go play with it. But basically now you can kind of see it on the side here. This is what was missing. I don't know where I put it in the update, but essentially I uploaded an asset. In this case, I've uploaded knowledge about a company that, let's say, I work for. In this case, we're going to use Dialpad. And then what it's doing is that's our knowledge, that's our RAG, right? So it's extracting what the ICP is from that particular company. And now it's saying it's failed. I exceeded quota or something like that. But essentially, if you deployed agents, I've exceeded the quota for whatever I have for the API, so I can't do it more. But if you would deploy the agents here, what it essentially does is it goes out, it finds companies that are good fits for reaching out about Dialpad. It goes and finds the updated information. It finds, if it can, the personas, the job titles, the people sitting in those job titles, what they probably care about, and then helps you devise a plan for how you're going to reach out to those people to talk about the company. So it's just a prospecting tool. Now, it all worked. I know it's like I'm out of quota and all the things. Of course, I can't demo it like I want to, but it just goes to show more than anything that, I was able to build that. It did use Next.js. It did use React. It says in its documentation, although I didn't get this far, I could have easily connected through MCP to quite a bunch of different tools. One of the cooler things I think is that it has a native way for me to add Google sign-ins directly to it, which totally makes sense, right? So what I wanted to do is get this to a point where that I could send it to one of you guys and you could just use your Google authentication to sign into it and actually have a user account, because it said that was one of the things it could do very easily. This is just a good example of when you have tools that are built by Google, you often get all the other benefits of Google and everything else that they've built. So I think as of right now, it doesn't have direct integration to like Google Drive, but I imagine that's coming, as well as all the other Google products that are out there, which would be really, really valuable. I actually think this could be a viable tool for building for clients. I've been hesitant to build stuff out of Claude Code. I've done stuff internally that I turn around and then show them, but they don't see the Claude Code side of it. I'm using it as my internal tool. This is actually probably the first time where I can think of clients in my head where I go, oh, I solved that problem for them through N8N in the past. If this could do one or two more things, I would have just built it here and deployed the visual solution to the client directly and said, y'all just keep logging in, but this solves your problem. So I think it's got potential, to do that. So three different tools that kind of came out in the last week, right? Updates to Stitch, updates to Google AI Studio. I would go play with both of them immediately. And Perplexity Computer, if I'm sure that has to do with whether you have certain levels, but I have the annual plan for Perplexity. I'm able to use it.
We all have Pro, I believe, and so we got the $4,000. Sorry, yeah. Correct. Wow, we're rolling in it with $4,000. That's not what I mean. I mean 4,000 credits. And Jennifer said she doesn't have access to it with the free, so you definitely had to have a paid version, and the higher version got it before we did. And I don't know what level credits to do. And Gareth, news from the chat, has connected channels with Claude Code, which was an announcement today. You can now set up something through Telegram or Discord, and you want and then it's like an open Claude. You can message Claude Code directly through the channel that you have set up.
Yeah, very cool. And I know, look, you guys have also talked about, your, maybe Andy or Beth, you guys both had talked about doing it, but do you just want to talk real briefly before we wrap things up about, you're using Claude Code for scheduled tasks? I know Dispatch came out this week, but scheduled tasks were just before that. But Andy, you had a cool use case for it. And then Beth, in our Slack channel, you had said, oh, I've also done something similar to this. I'm not sure if it was with scheduled tasks, but Andy, can you just give us a quick overview of like what it was that you did?
Yeah, the example is I used Cowork to build a scheduled task that would go into my inbox and read through 11 different AI newsletters, and using a knowledge piece that I added to the thing, which it then amended, which is a taxonomy of the general high-level topics that we discuss on the show. Then I wanted to have it select from all of those emails. I wanted it to select somewhere between 5 and 10 news items that are worthy of discussion here on the show. And it does this on schedule every morning at 6:30 a.m. my time, just 30 minutes before we start the show. And it sends that to me in my email as a digest of the things that I could talk about, each of them with a metadata, which is, hey, this is where it fits in the taxonomy of the overall topics that are being discussed. So you have kind of an anchor that way. And it gives you, an angle to, sort of a précis on what the story is, but then also gives you an angle about what to talk about on the show for that item. This all comes to me. I've only done it for one day so far, so I can't attest to how useful it is, but I think it's very useful. I mean, I feel like that scheduled task using Cowork, it's using two different pieces, not Dispatch, because Dispatch is how I would talk to Claude Code from my phone. And I've experimented with that, and didn't have a really great experience, because on the mobile app, okay, so set aside the example. Now I'm going to how does Claude Code get closer to Claude by giving me, through the mobile app for Claude, the ability to have a persistent and continuous session that started on Claude Code or Cowork over there on my workstation. And then I go outside and I'm walking around and I want to be able to continue the conversation in the Claude app on my phone. Well, I can do that, but there's a limit that Claude, admitted to, which is it's not showing me the full history of the chat. I can talk to it, but I have to remember everything that was going on there, or ask it to repeat that in order for me to see it on the mobile app. So it doesn't give you, as you might expect, the full chat history that you already started in the Claude desktop app. I thought it would repeat that over here. So I had, because I have the app. They're like, why should it be just like the desktop app?
So that's a different feature, right? The remote control gives you access to the desktop app as though you're using a remote control. The dispatch, I think I think they do two different things. That's interesting.
Yeah, but I think dispatch was supposed to kind of supplant the need to use remote control to talk to your Claude Code instance.
That's the impression I got, but I'm wrong. Yeah.
So anyway, it's missing that feature. But Claude did say, "You're right. That's that's something they'll probably come out later."
Yeah.
And that's the nice thing that I like about Claude, by the way, is I've often been frustrated by the inability of an AI to know details about its own capabilities. And you've had this experience possibly with ChatGPT where you ask it about a newly released feature and it says, my pre-training, ended on such and such a date. I don't know anything about things in the past year. Well, wait a second. I want to be able to talk to it. Claude's really good that way. Claude has immediate access to all of the latest information about how to use Claude and can give you step-by-step instructions on, and create distinctions in your mind about what this feature does and what it doesn't, and what workarounds might be available to you if you want to accomplish something.
All right. I know Brian needs to jump. I want to share quick.
You guys can keep going if you want. I just need to jump.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my scheduled task isn't a Claude Code scheduled task or Claude Cowork. It's a Google app script that was written by Claude Code. So we're on Rev 5. This goes through all of the AI newsletters that come into this inbox, and then it triggers 4 times throughout the day, because if it only triggers once, Claude says, "Ooh, this is a very big file." And I'm like, "Okay, let's switch it so you can just process 1/4 of it each time." So that's my scheduled thing, and it generates my prep for the show as well. And Andy and I are comparing notes on this. Yes.
I haven't seen what the output of yours is yet, and I haven't actually looked at. I haven't looked at what the output from today is, because my desktop, which has to run that scheduled task, went through an upgrade to Tahoe last night, and so it didn't even it restarted itself, but it's waiting for my password, so it wasn't even live when the schedule was supposed to kick off. So anyway, as days go on, we'll see how to refine that. And the beauty of Cowork is I can just talk to Cowork, and now I can talk to Cowork about that task, like from my phone if I needed to. And so there's lots of little points of friction around all those things, but all of those will be smoothed out over time, I'm sure. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, I'm making a commitment to more fully understand and become more proficient across everything Anthropic.
Yep.
Because I have to narrow my focus while being a great fan of Gemini as well, because of its integration with all of the app suite tools. It used to be called Google App Suite. It's not anymore. It's called Workspace. All the Workspace tools that I'm already heavily invested in, including Google Drive and Gmail and Calendar. All of those things I use in Google Workspace. And so I want to maintain Gemini as a fallback to any time I might run into, as Claude is wont to do, a limit, right? So it says, okay, you've timed out, you've reached the limit, and now you have to wait 4 or 5 hours until you can start up again. Well, I can just bounce over to Gemini and start working again.
Yeah. And that's amazing. For me, I really love Gemini. Maybe I love to hate Gemini. I love what Gemini's capabilities are, and I do find that it just needs much more strict instruction. Or maybe the drop from Gemini thinking to Gemini fast is just really huge, and it seems to increase the, do I really have to? Right? Like, I did part of it, and that's just challenging for me, but it's the best multimodal, system out there, particularly for video, which is super relevant for people who do YouTube, so all right. Thanks, everybody. Let's see. Gareth has clarified for us that remote control connects to Claude Code and Dispatch connects to Cowork. So they are similar things for different interfaces to whatever model you're using. And I'll preface that. I'll do that next week too. I was in a group of experienced women with AI, building things, doing very exciting things. And there was a question about, can you just explain the difference between Claude AI, Claude Cowork, and Claude Code? And I imagine that there are other people who have that question. So we'll
Just ask Claude.
Yeah.
Just ask Claude. It'll explain it very clearly.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everybody. We have tomorrow will be Saturday. The Conundrum episode will come out Sunday. The newsletter will come out, and we'll be back next week, Monday through Friday. If you want to talk further, go hop into our Slack, community Slack, the Daily AI Show community.com, and spend some time building this weekend. We are still in the doubled usage limits for Claude Code over the weekend. So
Okay, before we go, I just want to share this because Jennifer's asked a question here. She says, I've asked this before. By which I think she means Claude Cowork. This only works on files on your desktop, but if you use only Google Workspace and files in the cloud, it can't do the same things, read, write, etc. And Gareth said, correct, Jennifer. It's correct, but there's a workaround, which is that Cowork can use the Claude MCP Chrome extension to go into and the Google connector, and it can, as my scheduled task does, it can generate emails, it can edit emails, it can do all kinds of things in Google Drive. So I think it's not limited to just having to put a file on your desktop in order to have Cowork, which is this sort of local access to your file system and CLI. So it can execute code also on your machine. It also has, in my instance anyway, it has connectors to Google Drive, and it can take actions in the drive, including moving things around to reorganize them. Nate Jones said in one of his podcasts recently, he said that Claude Cowork had gone in and reorganized hundreds of files in his Google Drive. So I think if that's what your question really was getting to, Jennifer, I think that's the answer.
And so Cowork was really designed so that if you were scared of what Claude Code could do on your system, it's only working within the sandbox definition of the directory. If you give it escape routes out of the sandbox, it can totally do other stuff for you. And that's sort of what you've done in this. So just heads up, you can absolutely do that. And the press or the story around it's okay. You can say you just want it to be done here if you give it an escape route and tell it you want it to escape. It will, but now you're not limiting it in that
Right.
context. Which may seem obvious, but still, let's just explain. All right. Thanks everybody. Andy, were you gonna do a follow-up?
Nope.
Okay. Thanks everybody. We'll be back Monday and go build with AI. Thanks.